Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I haven't done a video in a couple of weeks actually. I've just been really busy and didn't really have anything specific that I wanted to speak about, and I didn't want to just like force a video. Anyway, so I am back and today I basically want to talk about why I am no longer concerned or scared about my muscle twitching. So if you're familiar with my channel, you may have watched some of my previous videos where I talk quite a lot about muscle twitching and how it affected me and kind of like my fears of ALS or motor neuron disease, as other people call it. And yeah, I am now at a point where I can confidently say that they do not bother me. I'm not scared of them anymore. I no longer think that I have ALS. And I was convinced as well. And really now, like, I still have them, but I hardly notice them because I've just become used to them. They don't bother me. I know that they're not dangerous. And yeah, it's just, I've come a full circle. And I'm proud of myself for that reason, really, because I remember I was at a point where I was Googling so much about muscle twitching that I was just like, I just got myself stuck in this really just awful cycle. So I think for me, one of the main reasons why I've kind of got over my fear of the muscle twitches is time. It's now been about 13 months since I first started having them, and there come a point with me like 2 months ago where I was like, Sharelle, if you had ALS, there would be other signs by now. You know, I was only having muscle twitching, and I've done a lot of research on ALS and other similar conditions that are way less serious, such as benign fasciculation syndrome, which is usually caused by anxiety. And I knew that muscle twitching on its own is not a sign of ALS. Typically with ALS, you'll have muscle weakness first, and then you'll have the twitches. And that's another thing as well, is the muscle weakness used to really throw me off, because I'd read about it and then I would feel that my arm was weak and that, you know, I had difficulty lifting it above my head. But the difference is with sort of perceived weakness, which is a weakness that we feel that we have, an actual clinical weakness. So with ALS, it's clinical weakness. It is literally physically not being able to lift, I don't know, something up anymore. Like, you just wouldn't be able to do it. And that's because your muscle has started to atrophy and the ALS has attacked that muscle. And that's normally when you start to get the twitches. You'll get the twitches when the muscle is dying. It's kind of all the nerves and everything going crazy, and that is why you get the twitching. So for me, it come to a point where I was like, okay, Sharelle, you've had these muscle twitches for over a year. You have no clinical weakness. You have no atrophy, even though, I might add, I used to convince myself that I had atrophy, because I would stare at like my palms, and you know, we've all got sort of like dents and stuff in our palms, and because you don't usually sit there and look at your hands, you go in to find something. And I used to look down my back and look for certain dents. But yeah, it's got to that point now where I know that if there was atrophy, it would have got worse by now. So I really think that with these kind of like fears and phobias of a certain condition, it's, you know, some people can be helped through CBT, some people might be helped by seeing a certain doctor. Personally, although I did all of that, what essentially helped me was just time. There has to come a point where you sort of step back and logic has to come in. And the same thing happened actually when I convinced myself that I had lymphoma. I had a swollen lymph node in my groin, and it got to about a year, and I had to accept that it wasn't lymphoma. And I think that is the important thing to sort of like remind yourself, is every day that you are okay is another day that you really, really, really are unlikely to have the thing that you fear. So, you know, some people, when they have these fear of conditions, they kind of tick tick the days off on the calendar, and say you get to 2 months and you are still doing everything normal, you're still walking around normally, you're still lifting your arms above your head and all of that, that should reassure you that it's not ALS. And with my muscle twitching as well, I sort of realised that when I started to meditate and when I started to distract myself, they either become less or I was just aware of them less. And I noticed that the less attention that I gave them, they were way less strong and they weren't as frequent. And I think back when I was so concerned about them, I was focused on them so much that they felt really strong. Like sometimes my arm would actually jerk. It felt like they were happening constantly, and I really do think that was purely because I was so in tune with my body and I was so focused on them. So like I said, I am now at a point now where they don't scare me anymore. If I had muscle twitching with some serious atrophy and some serious clinical weakness, yes, I would be very, very concerned. But I think it's important to remember how ALS works and where muscle twitching comes into that. Nobody with ALS has just had all over body twitching. It doesn't work like that. With ALS, it will start in one area of the body and then it will spread. That's how the condition is, and that's why people will start off with a limp, and then over the course of a few months, then the other leg will be affected, then they'll end up in a wheelchair, and then they might only have the use of their arms, and then they lose the use of their arms, and then eventually then they get to the point where, you know, the only way of communication, such as, you know, Stephen Hawking, is through using his eye movements. So if you look into it and you look at how ALS works, you'll hopefully be able to reassure yourself that that is not what you have. But I know how worrying it is. Trust me, I drove myself insane over it, and it was a very, very scary time of my life, thinking that I had this awful disease that, you know, I was gonna, oops, sorry, oh, there we go, that I had this awful disease that I was gonna suffer from, and yeah, it's really not fun to think that you have something like that, and my heart goes out to the people that really do genuinely have it. You know, it is awful. But yeah, I just basically wanted to share with you guys sort of what's been going on for me the last couple of weeks. I'm going to try and upload another video tomorrow because I have another topic that I kind of want to speak about. So yeah, I will see you guys soon. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Bye!